What's up, everybody? Welcome into Dodger Heads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Alex Freedman, broadcaster for the Oklahoma City Comets. The first place Oklahoma City Comets, by the way, 3.5 game lead in the PCL East division. Alex, I know you mentioned right before we came on, you had an overnight bus trip home today, so we appreciate you making some space to be with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Seems like you guys are having a nice little year down in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, pretty good year as we record this, tied for season best, 13 over 500. Team got off to such a great start. And then there was this stretch in kind of early mid-May where lost Tae-Sung Kim, lost James Outman, lost Dalton Rushing. And it took a while for the team to stabilize after that. But now it's really been a team characterized by its offense that's really led the way. Pitching staff is struggled now going on 3-4 weeks. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's not a whole lot of stability in the pitching staff here due to big league needs. So that certainly has a trickle down effect, on us here in Oklahoma City. But yeah, having a great year. First year under manager Scott Hennessy, who had been at AA Tulsa for a long time. People always ask me before season start, well, how good is the team going to be? And my response is just the way the Dodgers go about things. We know the team is going to be good. We just don't know how good it's going to be. And of course, so much of it depends on how the big league roster is shaking out.
Yeah, you mentioned instability in pitching. Dodgers fans know the instability well, and a lot of the guys that are being shuffled in and out of Oklahoma City are guys that are being shuffled up and down from Los Angeles. And so, as Dodgers fans can only imagine what Oklahoma City is having to navigate as the Dodgers have like 14 pitchers on the injured list or whatever. But I asked you to come on because there were a few guys in particular I wanted to get your thoughts on, again, as somebody who is the broadcaster for this team and follows them as closely as anybody. And let's start with the guy who's about to make his 2025 debut for the Dodgers this week. That would be Emmet Sheehan. Has not pitched in a big league game since 2023 when he made his major league debut straight out of AA. Actually, did go back to Oklahoma City for a few games in between stints in Los Angeles. But Sheehan had 3 really good starts in his first 3 rehab appearances, the fourth one by far his shakiest. But what have you seen from Sheehan across the 4 times you've gotten to see him this year?
Well, I think the thing that came to mind, especially after the first time he pitched for us in Las Vegas a few weeks ago, was like, man, I forgot how nasty this guy is. Everyone talks about the fastball and all the metrics behind it that make it so special. And man, guys just a lot of swings and misses at it. So that first game in Las Vegas, I mean, it was dominant in 3 innings. And then the next time out against Reno was pretty good too. And then, as you referenced, in Albuquerque, it wasn't sharp. I think everyone would acknowledge that. But look, there's a guy coming off Tommy John surgery. There's going to be some inconsistency, as you continue to round back into form. But even with that being said, I think the line was a little bit deceiving. Albuquerque is an extreme hitter's environment. There was one two-run homer he allowed that, I mean, is a routine fly ball, and basically every ballpark, it was I think they said it was 90 miles an hour exit velocity. For those who don't know, that is below what's called hard hit. Again, it wasn't his best, but I don't think it was terrible either. I talked with Hunter Fiducia, who caught him, said everything's looking good, coming out of the hand. Of course, as we talked about the fastball as well. So I think in ideal world, he makes at least one more start with Oklahoma City, but the Dodgers and their pitching staff does not live in an ideal world. Of course, We're seeing that as we record today with Shohei Ohtani set to pitch tonight in his debut as a pitcher. And with Sheehan coming back, even though he's not fully built up yet, did get over 60 pitches and pitch into the 4th last time out with us. So I would imagine it's a minor incremental increase after that.
Yeah. I mentioned you guys got to see him a little bit 2 years ago. I'm not expecting you to remember the 9 innings he threw in 2023 and compare them to the 11 innings you've seen from him in 2025. But you kind of referenced, and even the Dodgers have referenced, ideally, maybe this guy gets one more start. That said, 21 strikeouts in 11 innings and change. Does it feel like he's, just about a fully finished product and ready for the big league team in your estimation?
I think it goes back to what I said before. In an ideal world, does he make 1 or 2 more starts with Oklahoma City? Probably. I think he's going to be fine
Yeah.
ultimately. He's going to go out there, he's going to compete, he's going to acquit himself well. It just might not be to the exact maybe ceiling that
Yeah.
would be an ideal situation.
Okay. Well, let's shift from Sheehan to another guy who's kind of making his way back from injury. That's Edgardo Henriquez, the 22-year-old reliever who throws, I think, 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm not sure if that's the official scientific number there. He made his 7th rehab appearance down in Oklahoma. I guess it's not a rehab appearance. His 7th appearance, we'll call it, for Oklahoma City as he's rehabbing. I mean, do
It
they
is
consider this a rehab
technically it is
assignment?
technically rehab assignment, but yes.
Okay. Because I guess because he got injured at the major league
Yes.
level, it
Yes.
qualifies as a rehab assignment. Got it. But he did go 2 innings. The first time he went 2 innings, he touched 102.2 miles an hour. He was sitting just a tick under 101 miles an hour. The results on the season haven't been all that great. I think he's in the 7 appearances. He's only held the opponent scoreless 3 times, but we know the arm is live and guys don't seem to have a whole lot of answers for that fastball.
Well, they don't, but if you're a one-dimensional pitcher
Yeah.
and that's all you have, then they will be able to adjust to it. I think of the line that I heard Chipper Jones say a few years ago that big league hitters can time up a jet engine if they know it's coming.
Yeah.
So if that's all you got, then it's going to be tough sledding. No matter how hard you throw, I say velocity is not everything. It gives you a larger margin for error,
Yeah.
that's for sure. But what really, I think there's two key things that happened from his appearance yesterday. And before I even get into that, of course, like kind of in the same kind of same mold as Sheehan, this is basically spring training for them
Yeah.
right now. And there's a reason why you see so few guys go out and truly dominate in
Yeah.
spring training. But for Henriquez, he had a blow up outing on last Tuesday in Albuquerque. But like you said, he's given up runs, but I think there's only really been one bad outing out of that.
Okay.
And I think after that outing on Tuesday, there were some conversations with like, hey, about we understand that this is spring training, but at the same time, like, hey, we need to start locking it in too. And he's responded well. And then yesterday, getting into 2 innings for the first time, he hadn't even gone out for part of the second inning before in his time. And he was relatively efficient. And the thing that stood out to me was his slider.
Yeah.
Really, it's, like we said, if you got to keep guys off the fastball. And yesterday was very clear. Albuquerque was just sitting fastball, even though it is triple digits. And he was able to land it for strikes, and he was able to get swings and misses off it too. And there were just some bad swings and misses where you could tell guys were gearing up for the fastball, and he pulls it with a slider instead and gets a bad swing and miss from the opposition. So that's certainly encouraging. And I think he's probably in the same bucket as Emmet Sheehan, where ideally, he's in Oklahoma City for a while, but being a guy on the 40-man roster who has been in the big leagues before and the Dodgers short on arms, it could very well speed up the timeline.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Dodgers, up until this point, have had to juggle having basically the entire OKC starting pitching staff, I think, on the 40-man and on the 26-man. Matt Sauer, Justin Robleski, Landon Knack, a guy we're going to talk about in a little bit. And yet, with Ohtani coming back, with Sheehan possibly entering the rotation, you wonder if they're going to have room for just a true reliever, maybe. And it does seem like Enriquez would be the next guy up. But in your estimation, if the Dodgers were trying to do this sort of perfectly well, ideally, I guess I'll say, to use your language, like, do you think Enriquez is a couple weeks away from maybe being fully ready to be pitching in the major leagues?
Well, I think the Dodgers, they're pretty methodical usually in their rehab assignments with relievers. Like, hey, they're going to go the 1+ or the 2+ innings. They're going to make sure they go back to back at some point. They're going to make sure they do something like, hey, finish an inning, go back for another inning, things like that, which will simulate what they're going to be asked to do more frequently in the major leagues. So I think once we start seeing him do those type of things is when it will be an indication of a more imminent return.
Okay, let's shift gears. Let's talk Bobby Miller, another name Dodgers fans are familiar with. We know what the stories have been. This has not been the season that Bobby Miller or the Dodgers or anybody really was hoping for, let alone expecting from Bobby Miller. I guess when I look through some of the lines that he has had, Alex, it feels like in the middle of May, he started to find some success. He had 2 back-to-back starts with Oklahoma City that were his best, 11 and 2/3 scoreless, 11 strikeouts, and had his best performance at the major league level sandwiched right in between those 2 outings. But then June turns, and all of a sudden, it's not only the same struggling Bobby Miller we saw early in the year. You can make a case maybe the most struggles we've seen from him. Last 2 starts, 8 and a third, 13 earned runs, 17 hits, 7 walks, and just 2 strikeouts. He has not pitched since then. I don't know exactly what the rotation, how it lines up, but what's your estimation of kind of what you're seeing with Bobby Miller and what might the path forward be for a guy who has all the talent in the world, and we've seen it work at the big league level, but right now it's just not clicking?
Yeah, I know he's working hard. The coaches are working extremely hard. As I've said multiple times, no one wants to figure this out more than Bobby Miller does. And I know the problem in the past has been kind of the blending of the 4-seam fastball and the 2-seam fastball together, and getting separation off that is still an issue. But I know something they're doing to help combat that too is starting to work in a cutter too. So that's a new kind of pitch that he's working through, and I think through a few of in his last start. The reason he hasn't pitched, he was supposed to pitch on Sunday and didn't, and isn't scheduled as of right now. It's not a health issue. It's not a poor performance issue. I think it's an issue of when you hear Dave Roberts say, well, Wednesday or Tuesday and Wednesday are completely up in the air, Wednesday and Thursday or whatever it is. I think I'm not exactly breaking news by saying just connect some dots. You know, he might be needed, you know,
Okay.
for to help cover innings up there in the big leagues. But of course, I can't say that with 100% certainty. But again, I can tell you it's not an injury. It's not like let's give him a complete reset. He had thrown his bullpen after his start last Tuesday with the full intention of starting on Sunday. So again, it's just one of those things where he's kind of in a holding pattern right now. So, you know, it's a puzzling issue for everybody. Like you mentioned, of course, the talent is all there, and we've seen flashes of it this season where it looked like it was really starting to come together. I'm not exactly sure what I can pinpoint for the last 2 outings not going his way. You know, the thing that I think has been the most vexing has been the walks. That's never been an issue for him throughout his entire, essentially, life. And it's the first year where walks have been a problem. And I don't know if it's trying to be too fine or what the issue is. But that's certainly stood out. But like I said, I know there's a lot of people, Bobby included, who are working really hard to try and figure it out.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, it's just such a tough spot. You start to feel for a guy because, as a fan, you want to see him come back to the Dodgers. And this is a guy that some people were saying could be a dark horse Cy Young candidate a couple years ago at the major league level after what he did as a rookie. And to see, that line the other day where it's 10 earned runs and 11 hits. And again, almost the most alarming number to me is 2 strikeouts in his last 2 starts for a guy that has the stuff that he has. So I'm sure people will be encouraged to hear how hard they're working, and that, I know there was some not informed speculation, but speculation of like, what's the path forward for this guy? So the fact that they keep moving, they keep working, they keep scheduling him for starts. It's not like it doesn't sound like there's anything drastic coming for Bobby Miller, a move to the bullpen, anything along those lines.
No, not that I've heard. The plan is to keep him as a starter for now.
Okay. Let's shift to Landon Knack. Another guy, not quite to the degree of Bobby Miller, but a guy who had a fantastic 2024. And for some reason in 2025, I would say at both the AAA level and the major league level, has just not found the same success. I don't want to say he's not the same guy, but he hasn't been able to find the same success. He's on his 3rd stint with Oklahoma City. So it definitely doesn't help going up and down, and not knowing when or where or for how long your next outing is going to be. But is there anything, as a guy that you have seen a bunch of over the last couple of seasons, is there anything you've been able to see that's different from Knack this year?
Well, I think I might slightly disagree with the opening premise. I mean, there have been some times in the big leagues he's pitched really well this year. There have been some times in Oklahoma City he's pitched very well also. Like you said, with guys like that, it's so hard to get into a routine when you're constantly moving back and forth. And And, he pitched pretty well that last stint in the big league club. I know the last one against the Mets walked a lot of guys. And I think that, again, as we keep going back to differentiating between an ideal situation and a not ideal situation, that in ideal situation, he probably stays up there, but just due to the need for arms, he's got options. He had only used one of them so far this season. He becomes kind of the odd man out. I think his last start in Albuquerque was pretty good until got a little bit choppy at the end. But again, I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that you're going back and forth constantly. There's obviously got to be some unease of you don't know where your next start is necessarily going to be. And there's a lot of pressure on those guys, with that kind of in mind. I think this year, two things that have stood out, both positive, is one is the changeup, which has I think been better, that not only to get swing and miss, but also to get in the strike zone. And the other is just his physical condition overall. Definitely shed a lot of weight in the offseason, really trimmed up. So he's scheduled to start on Tuesday at home against Round Rock, and looking forward to that one.
I'm curious, and I'm not implying this is true of Knack, but being at the AAA level, have you seen over the years guys struggle who have been up at the major league level for significant amounts of time, maybe even gone through a playoff World Series run, and then being back at the AAA level after having that much exposure to the major league level? Like, is this a pretty normal thing for guys to maybe struggle to adjust back to what was normal for them?
I think it is. And to the average person, that might be hard to comprehend, but let's be honest. And Knack is a great example. His first official game of the year was in a sold-out Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
His second official game of the year was on a chilly April night in Oklahoma City in front of maybe 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Those are not the same thing, especially when you are a performer and you thrive off the competition and the adrenaline that comes with it. So again, I understand that the average person might think, well, they're still getting paid handsomely. Why can't they just do their job the same, no matter where it is? It's not the same. It's not. And as hard as that might be to comprehend, when you're around it as much as I am, you begin to understand it.
Yeah. Okay, I had those four guys. I wanted to give you space as somebody who's most intimately connected to this team. If there was another guy or two that maybe you wanted to highlight offensively, pitching wise, whoever who's maybe performed well of late or this season or whatever. So I'll hand the floor over to you, Alex. Who are some guys that maybe the average Dodgers fan should start paying attention to?
Well, it's hard you can't not answer this question without including Ryan Ward in some way, shape, or form, who now is in his third season with us and just continues to get better and better and better. Was kind of not the three true outcomes, but high power number, high strikeout numbers for a lot of his time, in 23. And then it got a little bit better last year. And this year, he's just turned into a great overall hitter. I mean, he's in his 2 strike counts. He's much more harder to strike out. He's taking walks at a much higher rate. He's put together some incredible individual performances. A guy who I'm glad got some shine this past fall playing on Team USA in the Premier 12 tournament, hit a pretty important home run in the Tokyo Dome. And just have been about as good of a human as you'll come across, and has never once felt sorry for himself, never complained about his situation, despite consistently putting up numbers. He's now what we call the Bricktown era, the franchise record since 1998 in the current ballpark. Career home run record, career RBI record. And I understand for AAA, the career record sometimes can be a bit of a dubious distinction, but he sees it as an honor to know that he's performed at this level. And you hope he gets his chance. Everyone is rooting for him. I know if he does get that call, it's going to be emotional for a lot of people, just because of how hard he has worked. He's been in the organization since 2019, so this is his last year, unless he gets, of course, added to the 40-man roster, or if he does get re-signed. But a lot of guys, when they reach that minor league free agency mark and they've performed and haven't been called up yet, there's some other opportunities awaiting, whether it's with another organization in the U.S. or if it's overseas. So, it's just this guy that you root for, and hopefully we'll get that chance at some point this year. One guy, if we had recorded this about 3 or 4 days ago, I would have said Jack Little, but the cat's kind of out of the bag with that. They did bring it up for taxi squad. Unfortunately, hadn't got activated, but he's been Oklahoma City's best reliever this year. Doesn't have the flashy velocity. It'll sit 93, 94. But what he's done this year is also incorporate a splitter. The Hawkeye will show it as a changeup, and he's told me it's a splitter. And he told me it's one he started playing with kind of early in the offseason. And then when spring training rolled around, when he was got a non-roster invite, he said he got a lot of good tips from Kirby Yates about throwing the splitter as well. So that's been another really good tool in his toolkit. And again, he's just been such a steady performer all season long. Another name I'm going to throw out just because of his shifting role of late is Nick Frasso. Had been starting. It's his first year back after having shoulder surgery, but a few weeks ago, a decision was made to make him to the bullpen or put him into the bullpen because, quite honestly, he's a guy on the 40-man roster. And that's probably where the need is going to be, potentially for him this year. And that's the potential role that he could fill at some point in the big leagues, a multi-inning guy out of the bullpen. And now that he's acclimating to that role, he's starting to look pretty good. The velocity obviously plays up a little bit. It is still a very unique set of pitching mechanics, I guess you could say. But great changeup as well. And there were some really good starts he had, but it was just kind of overall inconsistent. But again, I think it just gets back to the fact that this is a guy on the 40-man roster, and this is probably the role that he can fill if we need him to in the big leagues. So I think it's been an encouraging kind of adjustment for him to potentially help out the Dodgers.
I love it. I love it. That Alex Freedman, broadcaster for the Oklahoma City Comets. Go ahead, publicize whatever you would like to. Where can people? I know they can listen to games wherever they're at, that kind of thing. So, what do you guys have going on?
Yeah, every game is broadcast in some way, shape, or form. The audio broadcast for every game, home and road, it's easiest to get through the iHeartRadio app or through the Minor League Baseball app. All the games, of course, streamed via video too, with either MLB TV, which is included for those who have MLB TV, or you can purchase it through, I believe it's called MLB at Bat. Bally Sports Live also is now a free app that carries the games. When we're at home, you get our broadcast. If it's on the road, though, you're going to see the other home team broadcast. There's still no technology to sync up the visiting audio with the home video, which that's a whole conversation for another time. But we can do all that. And then we've got a few different games that are on Sportsnet LA throughout the year as well. And we've got that full schedule up on our website too. So a lot of ways to catch and support the Oklahoma City Comets. Social media is at OKC_Comets. And then my personal is AZ Freedman, AZ, and then my last name. So that's all the ways you can get all the information about everything Oklahoma City Comets.
I love it. And there's a Bluey night coming up in July.
There is.
Don't think I missed that, Alex.
I know what Bluey is. I couldn't tell you much more details than that, but I know a lot of people are excited about it.
Well, I saw that there were 2 times you could sign up for meet and greet, and both are already sold out. So
oh, wow.
Clearly,
okay.
But there is a public time available for people that still want to go, and you could kind of just line up and take your chances. So, Alex, thank you so much for your time. I know you've got, I don't want to say a rare off day, but you've been on the road for a while, and you spent your off day, at least a chunk of it, with us. So we appreciate that.
Well, as I tell people, there's a big difference between a day off and a day without a game. We don't necessarily have games on Mondays, but there's always some work going on in some way, shape, or form. But it's always a pleasure to speak with you, Jeff. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, this is Dodger Heads presented by DodgerBlue.com. You can subscribe, ring the notification bell right here. And, of course, check out DodgerBlue.com. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. As always, go Dodgers.